today. And we have a pretty purple flower on our elf. Let's just take a look. Sometimes, like, it feels like eons go by with me not painting on a model. And it feels like that. Like, I feel like I'm like, where was I again? Oh, yeah. We were actually making progress. And I was trying to make last-minute decisions about her laces, which I think are going to be yellow. I think we'll block those in today. But our little flower and plant thing on the lower part, I think, is working really well. We should work on some NMM and a crystal. We should do that. Yes, thank you, Quindy, for the reminder that people need to refresh. Oh, we just went live. See, here I am. You stall, y'all. Well, then wait a minute. We're going to go back. We're going to rewind time. Rewind time. Good morning, everybody. This is Anne, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips. On this happy Wednesday morning, we will ignore the fact that Justin was not, did not put me live when he should have. Yeah, see? That was smooth. Did you like my rewind, Justin? Anyway, yay. Hi, everybody. Re-hi to some of you. Yeah, I'm nothing if not, I don't know. I've got adequate caffeination. Good morning. And here I was, yes, he did. I know, Justin feels bad. So here we are. We're back to where we were before. As if it never happened. But yes. I always text him when I'm live. And I always give him at least 5 minutes. So, or at least I try. So. It's just that sometimes he tells me that we're good to go. And sometimes he doesn't. So I just I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're good to go. It's all good. Purple hearts back at you, Justin. Wait. Finger hearts. It's all good. I know how much crazy goes on at the Reaper. You're forgiven. Yes. And hello. Yes, early evening. Well, some late night, RD. Some late night, as we every once in a while we'll get one of our Singaporean or other friends in Asia tuning in. Very rarely, only when they're sleep deprived, but it does happen. Yes, everyone loves Justin. Exactly. Justin should feel secure in your love. All right, now what are we working on today? I was just thinking I needed to do some NMMs and some gemstones on this figure and highlighting this purple so we can get the front of the model more close to where we want it. And the back will... I've been doing a lot of freehand for you guys lately, so I think I'm going to take a break from freehand or leave the back as it is for a second or three. And mostly work on... there we go. Yeah, Australia. You got it, Toot-Up. So you also are a late evening. Happy late evening. Happy almost your bedtime. Happy past your bedtime? Something like that. So yeah, let's do some... let's get that gold NMM. I want the gold in so I can separate it out from her skin up here. And put some bling on here and see how that gold is going to work with our yellow, with our existing yellow. So, way past your bedtime? Yeah. Sometimes it be like that, right? I've been there. Oh boy, something simple. This isn't a bad one actually, Poleth. Essentially it depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to practice? If you're trying to practice like swords or steel NMM, this is not a great sword. You want something this shape though, and something held at this angle. If you want to start practicing like your steel NMM. This isn't the best one because of all these runes. So essentially those kind of get in the way and you kind of have to ignore them and paint around them. It can be a little bit of a pain if you're just learning. So, I mean, if you're trying to do trying to get steel down though, and swords in particular, doing a vertical sword is a lot harder than doing a horizontal sword, because here you can even see the shadow that's cast on the underside. So you know where your light sourcing is going to be and stuff like that. Yeah, and that throws you in the deep end, exosobs. So essentially if you do that, you're going to throw yourself off the deep end, and it's sink or swim if you grab a model with all sorts of different surfaces. And the problem that I run into trying to teach NMM like that is that rounded surfaces are so much more difficult in a lot of ways, or irregular surfaces are so much more difficult, that I feel like my students get really frustrated because I haven't grasped the principles yet, and now I'm trying to ask them to change those principles depending on the shape of the surface. So for me, I would start very simple. I would start with a model with a blade, with a straight blade, you know, with an angle like this one has, you know, it's kind of diamond shaped, all things considered, you know, there's an upper and a lower surface on each side of the blade. And I would maybe start with a model with just like some metal, like shoulder pads and chainmail. Orcs can be good for this. Stuff like that. Oh, yay, medication. Yeah, I got you. So I would tend to say start with something with just a couple pieces of armor and fairly large and simple pieces of armor, because NMM can be difficult, and so making it more difficult when you have zero experience is not, in my opinion, not ideal. It's different in a class maybe where Aaron is going to walk you through each piece, but I think it's also look at how you learn, right? Be very conscious as somebody trying to learn something. Always be conscious of how you learn best, because some people, throwing them off the deep end and having them sink or swim, they're going to try to adapt. Their brains are going to adapt faster in that way. Whereas some of us, when we're thrown there, just get stressed out. Like, I'm one of those people who, if I get thrown off the deep end into a new thing, I get stressed out super fast. And so for me, it's much more a kind of take it methodically, start simple, start to really understand the principles, then get more complicated. NMM can be very complicated indeed, depending on the shapes and where the lighting is coming from and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the way to do it, EXO. Like, and Aaron's smart and he's a good teacher. And I think you've got to do it that way. And you've got to hope your class keeps up with you. But I mean, it took me a long time to really get NMM. Like, I was working on it for, I'd say at least 6 months, till I got it. Because it's really a conceptual technique more than it's a mechanical technique. You have to understand light. You have to think about light. You have to get your brain wrapped around that and reflection. I would start on their weapons and then move on. Breastplates are pretty easy if they're pretty clean, Poleth. I mean, anything works. Just do what you can. I mean, your big thing is figure out where your light source is coming from. That's where your lighter surfaces are going to be. Remember your brightest highlight. Remember you need dark shadows in addition to bright highlights or it won't look like metal. And then you have to worry about the under reflection. I've done a lot on NMM. I probably need to do a simple series on NMM for my Patreon. But yeah, I mean, don't expect yourself to get it overnight. I watched a lot of movies that helped. Honestly, the Lord of the Rings movies, that was about when a lot of them were, I think Fellowship had come out and Two Towers was coming out. And that was around that time where I was starting to really work on my NMM. And those help, like watching medieval movies where there's actually sunlight and other light on armor, swords, and things like that. If you can learn like the basic rules of NMM and then watch that kind of movie and watch how light acts on the metal. See if you can see those rules in action. Stuff like that actually really helped me. It clicked for me watching Lord of the Rings. I learned 2 things from watching Lord of the Rings that have improved my painting. One was a better grasp of NMM, and 2 was highlighting faces. Because Peter Jackson uses a lot of diffused top-down highlighting, which is exactly the kind of lighting we tend to use on miniatures. So, there you go. Yeah, you won't lose your muscle memory that fast. You may feel a little rusty at first, but it'll dial right back in. Like, I think you can even take a 6-month or a year hiatus and pretty much redial your stuff in. No, I haven't, Poleth. Probably because one of the things with Treants and Shambling Mounds is that they're very, each one is very different. So it's hard to generalize about them. You could do a video on painting bark, you know, but I haven't gotten around to one of those. No, not at all. Not at all, Alquos. I use metallic paints on larger models all the time, and we just did a smaller one. You use the same principles to highlight and shade them realistically, though. Hold on. I'll get you my metallic one that I did for Reaper. Here's our dwarf. Since I'm not taking these to Ron. So we used metallics. I'll explain, Alquos, what my divide is on that in a moment. But I do use both. I like metals on larger pieces. You can see how big and bulky these plates are. This is shaded metallics, so I've used regular paint to create shadows, and I have highlighted up with mixtures of pearl white to get that copper look. We actually used Dwarven Gold for this, Bones 9451, which I really like for doing a copper because you can shade it down with more oranges and purples. So we did that here, and did some silver as well. So I don't believe that NMM is the right choice for every miniature. I do think you can make it work on pretty much every miniature, and I don't believe that you can make metallics work as effectively on every miniature. And the way that I choose between them is I ask myself how big the surfaces are. This is 28 millimeter, by the way. When it gets up to 54 and above, I think you can use true metallics on anything. So if you're working on a bigger model, then it doesn't matter. Choose what you like. Yeah, research, exactly, NBC Charles. But yeah, so the reason I'm doing NMM on Lysette is that if you look at her metal parts, they're very small. She doesn't have any big bulky metal parts. She's got these little fixtures on her staff. She's got a little filigree around her, the top of her corset, and she's got a little handle here, and she's got a sword blade. That's the biggest thing that's metal on the model. And so for anything small, then I automatically go NMM because it's just going to look better. It's going to look sharper. I'm going to be able to do it better. With metallics, yes, I use brighter metallics and I also mix colors in. But the color I mix in is itself a metallic. So the way that we made that one, and by the way, I did this on Pro-Tips here, Alquos. So if you go over to Reaper's YouTube, you can find the Dark Dwarf Smiter on there and just see how I did all the metals. Like, it's probably about 3 hours. Thank you, Quindy, with the reference. There we go. Quindy just linked it for you, Alquos, in chat. So if you want to go watch how I did the metals, then you can go over there. I think it starts the second video. I block in the base code, I think, on the first video. But it's pretty boring on the first video. So I would use his item number there, though, to... 44108. If you search for 44108, you'll get all the videos. Anyway, what I use to highlight almost every single metallic is pearl white. Pearl white is a white metallic, so it has a white flake, but it also has a little bit of white pigment in it. So if you mix it with a color like Dwarven Gold, you get a lighter pinkish orange color that looks like copper, just because you're mixing those pigments. And this is especially a good color to highlight with if you're doing like a blue or purple metallic. What I like for the red and the green metallic from Reaper is I like to use New Gold 9051 instead, because those colors tend to... Like the green uses a goldish flake, and so it tends to work a little bit better. But when you're up at your highest highlights, you can take that New Gold and highlight that with pearl white. I usually do a 50-50 mix, and then maybe I'll go straight up to this, depending. Does that answer your questions? I think you do get better a little bit, Kariniko, but I think that you get diminishing returns after a while from just like painting, right? Because you'll always improve your brush control. You know, you'll improve little things. You'll improve maybe your understanding of color. If you line your gaming models, you'll get better at that. You'll get better at any technique you use regularly. But if you want to if you want to expand your toolbox, then yeah, it takes a little bit of actually trying. I would mix a little color into it for your shadows. I mean, it'll look like kind of like a satin or a white metal, but I find that it's the closest thing you're going to get. It is a white metallic, but you got to put down a gray mouse, or you got to put down a darker base coat though. Like put down, and you're still probably, it's a pretty translucent metallic, so you may have to put down a couple of coats over the top of that. I would use a light blue gray. as its base. And then you're going to have to shade it appropriately to white, which means you don't want to go down too much. I've played with it on a model for white metallic. It definitely is a little bit just figuring out, because white is hard already. So when you're trying to do a white armor, I've had a lot more luck just using NMM techniques on that, and using, kind of doing a white enameled look. Alkos, the way other paints react with metallic is they make it duller. That's why you always want to use a white metallic specifically to mix in to highlight. So when I shade, I mentioned I'm using regular paint to do the shading up here. Like I used like reds and purples to get the shadows on these plates and to make all the edges stand out better. And so what happens is these places where I've applied thin layers of regular paint, they don't shine as much. Can you see that? See how that center part is not as shiny? And then the areas where I highlighted up with metallic here are much shinier. The edges, the rivets, this area where the light kind of falls off the side of the pauldron. Sorry, frog in my throat. Same thing down here on the hammer. I wanted it to darken around the rivet, and I wanted some, a shadow there and to bring out the details. So where I'm putting my highlights and shadows on here, by the way, is the same as I would do with NMM. It's just I'm using metallic paint. So that is, yeah, it's anytime you mix or put it over the top, Velendar, correct. A lot of people used to call mixing metallics with colors demi-metallics. A lot of people, if they're going to do it, they use mediums to retain some glossiness. So that can help with the shininess. Like that's what Kirill Knave does. That's one of the things he does. But anyway, so there you go. That was your mini course on metallics. And also always remember to put a dark base coat under your metallics. For white metallic, it makes less sense to put a really dark one down. But for this, I used black and brown under all of these brown plates, the copper and the scorched metal. And under steel, I typically will use a medium dark gray, like cloudy gray. Sometimes stormy gray, anything like that. Alrighty. That said, where are my metallic colors? Here they are. My NMM colors, rather. So let's do some shading and highlighting on these little NMM areas. And I think for my shadow, I'm going to use black and brown if I've got it hiding around here somewhere. If I don't, I'll probably use a mixture of russet and brown liner. Because for things to look shiny, you have to have a darker shadow. It is not optional. A lot of people back off on it because they're not sure where to put it. But then your NMM will just look like rocks. Any gold tone metals. I use dark green with bronze once. It doesn't make a lot of difference once you've got enough layers of metallic. You'll just go over your base coat unless you make a note to leave it. If you're using something like green, then to suggest verdigris, then I'd leave a little bit in the deepest shadows or just glaze some metallic over it. But yes, brown is your go-to. And the reason for that is, Alkos, that the flake used by most miniatures paints companies is made to work better over a dark base coat. Like when they send us big swatch pamphlets of sample colors that we can order, they purposefully show the color put over a dark base coat and a light base coat so that we can see the flakes are made to go over a dark base coat. It increases the reflection and the shine. So if you put them over a lighter base coat, you won't see as shiny of a metallic. And you also get better coverage appearance over a darker base coat. Yeah, I think everything now is just shaded metallics. It's what people call it now. Whether you're mixing paints in or glazing paints over. Pearlescents usually use the same exact flake as metallics, Lorzel. Or Lazoral, sorry. I said your name wrong. Ah, and I dropped my pokey tool into my water. This is not good. Now I'm going to get my hand all wet searching for it. There it is. I was trying to clean it off and like totally dropped it. Hey, Bean Mitch, thanks for the resub. 14 months. Well, yeah, but a lot of people were calling it that before Michael Poldeath. He's just like, among the Reaper painters, he really pioneered a lot of, showing people how he promoted it. He showed people how to do it. He's really open to talking about it. He really likes it, so he wasn't the first one to coin the phrase, but he was like definitely instrumental in the Reaper gang for getting more of us to give metallics a chance. Yeah, he does it really well. Michael likes a very saturated, well, though he's changing it up. I can't say that. He used to really like very saturated shadows in his metallics, by which I mean very vibrant colors. And I'm not sure that he's there. I thought I saw kind of him moving a little bit more naturalistic in his painting last ReaperCon, but it's been 2 years. Like, all of us change our styles as we go, so it's hard to say. It's hard to generalize about anybody's style at this point. Because the minute we think that, oh yeah, Anne's going to be working on blah, then we change it up. But yeah, Michael's fantastic at the shaded metallics. No question. Most of us were like, eh, and he's like, look, and we're like, ooh. All right, I've got my paints mixed up. I think I have a drop of water in there. I think I do. I have a very abbreviated palette for small gold NMM. It pretty much has 4 colors in it these days. Used to do 5, realized I really didn't need the midtone. Yeah, so you're doing it a little differently, but you're doing the same kind of principle of Alendar. So we've got our really dark shadow. Oh, let me get my mixing brush. I don't want to use my good brush for mixing. Hey, I should be getting brushes soon. I'm excited because I ordered some new ones. So I ordered some more Escodas, like my mixing brush. I ordered some bigger brushes. I realized that the biggest thing I had was a 1. And I wanted to get some bigger stuff so I could try to paint more fast, more loose, kind of the way my boyfriend David does. Get things done a little faster. And encourage myself to, play around a little bit more with lighting and just to get the base coat on fast so that I can concentrate on the parts of the model that I think are really fun. And maybe just be a little more spontaneous. It's like kind of my goal. So I'm kind of mixing each of these into the other ones. In case you haven't noticed, I'm working from middle to dark, and then I came up and worked from light into there. So everything has a little bit of the previous or next color mixed into it, with the exception of my pure white. Hey, New Encode, thank you. 20 months with Prime even. Dang, I'm always so impressed with Prime resubscribers because I always forget mine. Hey, Bob and Julie, it's good to see you. I am getting ready to do some NMNMNMM, or non-metallic metals. Wanted to get some of this stuff down on Lysette. Might need a little more. We'll see. Might need a little stronger white there. It's thin 2-to-1, and most of the time that's about right. Man, my frog in my throat is for serious today. Pardon me while I hydrate and try to drown it. Alrighty. The glasses are online. It's serious now. What are you guys working on right now? What's the challenge for Reaper Challenge League? Tell me what you're working on. What's the Reaper Challenge League thing, and then what are you working on? Thank you for the link, Quindy. Yes, I thought I would promote, since it's the beginning of the month, I thought I would promote the RCL. So if you are trying also to paint things faster and get more done and have some fun with everyone, ooh, look at all that rhyming, you should go and check out the Reaper Challenge League. Alrighty. So the first thing to figure out is where our shadows are going to be, depending on where our light is falling. And right now I've got a very general light source. The most that can be said is that I shaded a little bit in these areas and between the folds. So if I'm looking at this right now, unfortunately I have light currently coming from two directions, but I'm kind of implying that the light is falling. This is where vertical NMM is really hard. So now we have to pick a direction. We have to pick a child, a favorite child. Oh, all right, Shadow Raven. Yay. Yay for the resub. Bunch of Dark Dwarfs. That's cool. So it's a good thing I brought out my Dark Dwarf. Good job, Blue Neko. Yay for Corset. Adult Bronze Dragon. That's right, Nomad Zeke, I remember. Finish off all the minis you failed to complete last month. Oh, Kuruniko. Seasonal challenge for later in the month. That's cool. That's cool, Thoromel. Neat. All right, so we have to pick a side. Why? Because we have a cylinder. Cylinders are a pain in the butt. So we have to figure out if we want our light to be coming from slightly off center or straight down. And what side essentially will be our shadow side of this staff. I think I'm going to make the shadow side this side. Oh, 18 Dark Dwarfs, yeah. And the reason is, I've got this wood up here, and I want to have this crystal be glowing, probably. So, since I want to do that, I want some... I don't want to be fighting the light sourcing. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, the light is coming from this direction, and that means the crystal's in darkness. Except it's not, because it's glowing. No. I would rather just have the light source falling down this way, and if the light source is up here, that means the angle goes down like that. And that means this side is going to be in shadow. Or more in shadow. And that's the kind of crap you have to think about with NMM. Like, you have to decide, and then you have to stick to it and be consistent. This is why a lot of us, especially on larger models, we tend to pick a slightly off-angle light source. Like, the most common light sourcing for miniatures when you're actually picking an angle is probably off-center right. David is doing that on the model he showed you guys yesterday. Or even like even down more toward the horizon right, if you're doing like a more afternoon model. But you want to pick something and stick to it, because your other choices then are going to reflect that. So if we have a light source that's really directly overhead on her, then I have to like be kind of going like this. And that'll be all right. So now that I know that that's a shadow, I'm going to paint in a bit of shadow along that side. And this is a 50-50 mix of russet brown 9199 and brown liner 9064. I regularly use this mix for shading NMM, although I sometimes do go all the way down to brown liner if it's not dark enough. There's separate skill sets for sure, Minecraft meat. Like speed painting is what I'm working on right now for myself, because, you know, so Ms. Knoll here, she's being speed painted. I have a lot to do on her still. But right now, she's only got 3.5 hours in her. I would like to get her done by the end of 10 hours. It would normally, to give you an idea, it would normally take me 10 hours to do a Reaper gallery level 28mm model. Much smaller. So that's a big challenge for me. But yeah, speed painting and really high-end painting, you have people out there who can do both. Sergio works very fast, Sergio Calvo Rubio. Supposedly, he does a lot of stuff finishing. He'll do some clever things with the airbrush to do that. But because he does so many commissions and things, that's just the way he's developed a very good, fast painting style. Derek Schubert, who does a lot of sculpting for Reaper now, but used to do a lot of painting for us. Derek had a very good, fast paint job. What you're usually doing with good, fast is you're blocking in things very quickly. And then you're spending a time at the end to kind of tighten up and focus on details that are important instead of painting the entire model to a high level. So, like, the big difference here. Wei An usually paints versus Wei An is painting the Knoll. So here we go. Side by side. So how we are painting the Templar is we are going in tiny sections, we are focusing on tiny details, and we are taking forever to do each section. Templar is currently probably at about 30 hours, 10 times the number of hours that Knoll is at. She will probably be a 60-hour model by the time she is done. Knoll is going much faster because I forced myself to just block in things roughly. They're not blended, stuff isn't finely detailed, each part isn't going to go up to like a huge level. So it's like a mindset, and you can switch. I think it's easier to switch from the speed paint to the fine paint, personally. Which is what I'm seeking to do, is essentially I'm seeking to get to be a faster painter by moving faster in the beginning stages of the model so that I have more time to futz later in the model. Well, and that's because the Knoll is like got so little detail on her right now. She's very roughed in. Right, and that's the key, right, Minecraft Meat? So like, you know, the Knoll looks great, but she has very little on her that's done to the level of the face on that Templar. Like, she's really, if the Knoll falls down, the Knoll looks great far away, and then as you get closer, she falls down. Like, you start noticing flaws and stuff that's not done and textures that aren't finished. Whereas when you look at the Templar, if you get really tight in on any part of her that looks done, it looks done down to the micro. You can get really close to her and still see fine details. So she's tight to the max, but it takes time to get there. And so I'm experimenting with the Knoll because I wanted to do a more dramatic light. Yeah, the Knoll has some extra work in her too, Shadow Raven. She's at about 3.5 hours. I did about 2.5 on stream, I think. I did an extra hour of work on her one evening. Just to kind of figure out the hair colors. All right, well, let's get on this then. Let's get some more shadows on these while I talk about it. But yeah, speed painting is... If you want to speed paint from start to finish fast, then you need to actually get to be a pretty good painter, I believe. Because in order to, what you're essentially doing is you're like generalizing, you're abbreviating techniques. You're trying to get the gist of the technique down, like NMM, and you're not wanting to do it like full bore and down to the micro level. So, but to do that, you need to understand the technique pretty well to make it work, right? So you need to understand where your skin highlights go in order to do a good, fast skin tone, for example. Stuff like that. So I believe that one does inform the other. If you're a good slow painter, you can learn to be a better speed painter. And if you're a speed painter, you can learn to slow down and spend more time and get, more focused on areas and finish them to a higher level. So, but I think that you still need a good understanding of the basis of technique to be a really good speed painter. Depending. Like, you can do high-level tabletop quality without having a lot of understanding about light, for example. Hopefully, they'll be finished by ReaperCon. I would like to enter them both because they've both been tackled using very different styles. So I'm curious to see... Now, given the Templar does have more details, more tiny details on her, the Knoll is a very good speed paint model because her details are big and bold, and her intricacy lies in the fur texture and and the hair. So the Knoll is like, she doesn't have a lot on her sculpt that's super intricate, except for all those little dreadlocks. Whereas, so here I'm just doing some basic lining just to bring out these little details on this sculpt, and then I'm going to do some blocked in shadow. So first the lining to kind of bring out the little bits on that hilt. And then we have to look at it overall. So that was focused on detail, but now we're going to look at it overall and say, okay, we have an upper level on this sword. So we also have an upper level on this hilt. And then we have a lower level on this sword that's going to be dark. This area is kind of flat, but I can still put a kind of a middle shadow in as if this is curving, as if this shield area is kind of curving across the face of the blade here. And I can still put in a shadow area here, starting right about where the shadow area starts here. And I'm going to leave a little bit lighter toward the bottom here. And the reason for that is that one component of non-metallic metal is reflectiveness, and you do that by suggesting that light is bouncing back up even at darkened areas. So that's how we tackle this little bit on this hilt. Let's do the other side. May as well do both sides. I ran out of oomph on her because she's, I was just doing, she's getting there slowly, but I ran a little bit out of love on her. So I got I'm getting all the freehand mapped in. All the freehand is mapped in on this side. But I don't love her as much as I love the others, Polaris. The problem was, I think, is that I listened to too many other people about how to paint her. So let this be a lesson to you. Feedback can work against you as well. When you're excited about a model, but you maybe you show it to your friends and they're like, oh, she's really cool, but you should do this. You should do this. Oh, I love this. You should do more of that. And they get excited about the model because they really like it, which is awesome. But if you take too many of their ideas, you can suddenly find yourself not liking the model as much. And it doesn't feel as much like yours. And this is why some feedback for mini painting is valuable, but too much feedback for mini painting can also make you lose enthusiasm for a job. So depending on how you tend to react to feedback, be conscious of that. The cloth is like only basically, it's not even really done. But thank you. Just be aware that the camera is making it look good when actually it has almost zero work done on it. That can happen with black and white. Your lighting makes your work look better than it is. But yeah, so the problem with Halfling Rogue is that I showed her to people, and people were like, blarg this, blarg that. And then I ended up painting her, putting a little bit more into her than I wanted to, and also just going in a direction with her that wasn't my original concept. And so, they didn't mean to do it, right? And I could have, at any point, had I been smarter, realized that that was a thing, and backed off and said, no, I want to do it my way, and I didn't. So now I'm at a point with a model that is almost done, could easily get done within another, 5 or 6 hours, maybe, less than a week. And I have no enthusiasm for it, because it's not mine anymore. So that is a thing. Be aware of it. Because I think a lot of people really like to ask for feedback when they're not sure, and maybe you want to ask for feedback because you're like, you want to show people, hey, I'm really proud of this. Look what I did. What should I do next? Or what do you think of what I just did? And people will get excited about your work, and they don't, they mean the best by it when they're like, oh, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? But that can backfire on you. So it's not that, yeah, and that's true, Brigala. It's like the only person who has to like it is you. But I think we do often will get excited, when other people are excited, right? They'll be like, oh, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? And you start thinking about that, and you're like, oh, that sounds like a pretty cool idea. Let's try it, And then before you know it, then unfortunately, you're in and you're well committed. and you feel exhausted at the thought of painting over stuff because you're so close to done, but you also have lost enthusiasm. So yeah, just be aware that that can happen. Don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this yet, and I just, your suggestions are cool and all, but I'm not going to, I can't take them right now. I'm going to just kind of listen to myself on this one, This can be especially prevalent if you stream, if you stream and do commissions for a living. And yeah, but there at least you've got, if you're streaming commissions, at least it's the commission holder, who's going to dictate, right? So your stream people can yell suggestions all day and it won't matter because the client gets the vote, right? Yeah, we talked about that a bit, actually, Alquos, where I usually ask people, do you want it? I've got a new saying for it is, do you want sympathy or strategy? In other words, do you want me to be like, oh, that's awesome. You did this great. I think it looks good. You keep going, sympathy. Or do you want strategy? Do you want to know how to make it better? And those are two very different things. And as an instructor myself and having many instructors as my friends, it's something we all have to kind of figure out, right? And most of us will just ask you, do you want feedback or do you want me to just look at it? I usually ask, do you want hard mode? Hey, did we just get a raid from Miniatures Den? I totally missed that. Hold on. Wait, and there's a brush size comment. I have to go and answer these things. I'm losing it. There it is. All right. Thanks for the raid, Luca. Newbie level painters. All your brushes are too big. Let me show you the range that I use, pirates. Hold on. Let me get back down so I don't miss everything. And I will get back to what we were just talking about too. At least if I remember it. So let me grab my brush sizes that I use. And I'll get water on them so that they all stick together nicely. And show you. So, all right. So I use everything from the very big. Oops. My DaVinci is not obeying. And it's a brand new DaVinci. It's got no excuses. All right, so these are my guys. This is my range, and here is my finger to give you a comparison for bigness, and here is a miniature to give you a comparison for bigness. So, yeah, exactly, Saib. And that's fair, right? That's fair. It's all fair if you just want to say, and what I usually will pick out then is I will pick out one thing that you did well, and I'll compliment you on it. If you come up to me for feedback and that's all you want is a pat on the head, that's what I'll do. And that's cool. If it motivates you and keeps you painting, that's the important thing. But anyway, so this is a Raphael 8408 size 1. This is a DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size 1. So you can see how much the size 1 varies between different brands and series. This is a 000 DaVinci Maestro Series 10. So what matters isn't the size of the brush, because I can do eyeballs with any of these. What matters is how good the tip is. So if you feel like your brushes are too big, ask yourself if maybe you're not using a very good brush, because all these are Kolinsky sables. They're all grade 1. So they're all the highest grade of red sable that you can buy, and they're watercolor brushes. So they have very, very good tips. And they keep their tip for the life of the brush. I've beaten up my brush. I beat up my brushes a lot. But yeah, so those are the sizes I use. I use this one, the tiniest one, actually only when I'm using very thin paint and going for very small areas, which we will be doing actually on this NMM in a moment. So I'll switch to this just because when the paint is really thin, switching to a tiny brush can enable you to keep control of it a little bit better. And when it has all that water in it, because it's thin, it will stay wet in the tiny brush, unlike thicker paint, which will dry in the tiny brush a lot easier. But yeah, always when somebody hands you their mini, always try to be cognizant of that. As I was saying before, it's like ask them, hey, do you want feedback? Do you want me to just look at it? What are you looking for here? Just be straight up with them. They'll probably appreciate it, because if you're like, I just wanted to show you what I did, then it's like, cool. And And some people are just like wired to give critiques, like David, my boyfriend, is. So I have to tell him, look, I just did it. I don't want feedback. I just did it. Otherwise, he will give feedback because that's the way he's wired. He's an analytical mindset. Right. And so always ask. Always ask. And if you want tough love, I'll give you a critique. Usually, though, you shouldn't be, if you want to get better, don't be afraid of critiques. Most of us, especially the ReaperCon instructors, we all are very, we're all very positive. Like, we're going to look at your work, but we're not going to slam you. Like, the point is not to slam you and make you wish you'd never painted something. The point is really to encourage you, to tell you maybe what your next steps are. Like, that's what I really like to do for a painter, is say, if you wanted to improve this technique would be your next step. Now I'm just messing around. And I am using my DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size 1, which is my do everything brush, really. All right, Minecraft Meat. Awesome. Congrats that you got your Kickstarter stuff. I hope I answered your questions. I don't think anybody should have to deal with miniature criticism unless they seek it out. Like, honestly, just like take joy in your hobby and go. Like, it would discourage me a lot if I showed you guys Noel and you all went, oh, well, you should do this and you should do this, and why is her face only half painted and all this kind of, stuff. I would get sad because I just wanted to share my work, right? So I totally get it. And that's why I tend to be pretty cautious about people if they want that, and years of doing Reaper Paint Club, where many people are just trying to learn enough to enjoy the hobby a little better, right? They're not looking for hardcore critique. Now, what you do need to do, though, is if you are looking for critique, for honest critique, you need to say so. Awesome. None of us do pirates. I just got mine, and I'm looking at all these awesome Greek mythology models going, what am I going to do on stream first? Yeah, exactly, Alquist. For sure. Everybody is very supportive. And even more so if you're... That's why I'm like, just be clear in communication. And that's true for all humans, right? We could all stand to be a little clearer about what we're looking for. Sometimes it feels weird to ask for what we're looking for. So I'm going to put a little bit of highlight up here. I'm going to throw my shadow on there. On the rounded area of her chest, then I have to kind of pay attention to where the light's going to be and where is it not going to be. So sometimes I'll block in shadows first, like I did here on the cylindrical staff bits, and sometimes I'll block in a first highlight just to kind of look at the area. Yeah, no, Varl, because I do want to work on something I'm super excited about when I start a model on stream. Like, I always kind of make them fight for my love. I always look at the models that I've got for Reaper and go, all right, what do I really feel like? What do I really feel like? And the other thing I'll do is, what can I teach on this model? Because, of course, this is a sit and paint with Anne stream, but it's also a, what subjects can I cover that maybe I haven't before? Like, I really want to do the centaur because I haven't talked about horses or doing, like, fur texture and highlights on horses. So I'm kind of excited to do that. And then I look at other stuff and I'm like, well, the Cloud Giant, though I really think she's awesome, it also is going to take forever because she's big and she's got a lot of details. Oh, I know, Minecraft, but you know what? That's them. I try to be clear to people. And I will absolutely, apologize and say, I'm sorry, I know you really want to help. I just need to, have my own thing here, right? And yeah, sometimes, especially because people do want to be so helpful, right? Sometimes that will make them sad. Try to encourage them not to be sad. Thank them for whatever they gave you. But it definitely is a balancing act, right? Because you don't want to be rude to people, but you also need to make, if you really need to make something clear, then you should make it clear in the nicest way you can. All right, so now I'm blocking a little bit more light up there. And that's where we've got a nice, that really splits that area off from her skin. I was afraid the gold wouldn't look great next to this yellow, but it actually does. I think it looks better because we went with a cold yellow. Monochrome and mother color? What's that, Clavicus? Monochrome, I totally get. What's the other one? Right, exactly. Yeah. I definitely split it into conceptual and mechanical techniques, Alquos. So like things like layering and glazing and washes, those are all mechanical techniques. But things like other source lighting, OSL, and NMM, non-metallic metal, and even somewhat shaded metallics, those are conceptual techniques because you have to be able to think about how light acts and then translate that into working on the model. Oh, that's easy. Man, I do that all the time. You'd be shocked at what you can do. Yeah, that's fun. That's like almost like a gamut. Like what that sounds like, mother color I had never heard of, but it sounds like a James Gurney gamut a bit, where you've got a very specific chunk of the color wheel that you're working on, and inevitably on that chunk you'll have one color that has a little bit in everything. That would be fun. Probably could do that with like the Cyclops. Usually I think that sort of thing works good on something with a very an allegiance to a particular color, kind of like where if you're going with all earth colors, then it's super easy. If you're going all ocean colors, then it's super easy. Things like that. Just trying to bring in a little bit of highlight on the underside here. Reflection again. Yeah, I love the new Cyclops. It might be more valuable to do something very interesting and difficult with that. To choose a very problematic color and work with it. There are definitely colors which would not be as good for that. Anything with black, for example. Doing a little bit of under reflection highlight now on these rounded areas. It can be difficult. Then I'll block in darker shadows. Like I said, sometimes I like to start with the highlight, sometimes I like to start with the shadow. It's definitely time for a stretch though. So after I block in this little bit of under reflection here, this tentative under reflection I'm playing with, then I will get up and stretch because my back is definitely twingy. Didn't sleep great last night. That's probably part of it. Tossed and turned a lot. All right, so we'll put her aside for a bit and do a stretch. Yeah, for sure, Max. I mean, well, I think that that's more true when you are at a certain level. Like, I think that when you are at an intermediate and higher level, that is extremely true. You have to see if it works for you. Sometimes with your earlier stuff, you know, if it's just, here's how you could get better at your blending here, that one isn't necessarily, is it true for me, right? Unless, of course, you are cultivating a style where smooth blending isn't what you want, then it is true. But I think it becomes more true, I guess, as you get more well-versed in techniques. Maximum number, like, of different colors? What specifically do you mean, Varl? Different colors? I tend to use, at most, 4 strong colors on a model. I believe very strongly in, but I'm sure I've done a 6, which is pretty much every color of the rainbow. It's just you minimize some of them. I'm wondering if, I'm just looking at my shelf to see if I have anything that is done that way. But I tend to be a very strong focused color color person, and I tend to advise people, Varl, to only use 2 at most 3 strong colors on a model. And if you use a 4th, it needs to be an accent, and sometimes even my 3rd is an accent. I like less complicated color schemes. I think that people get themselves into trouble with color a lot. I do a lot of green, orange, purple, or 2 of each of those. And I may have small accents. Like, actually, I mean, I guess Halfling is a good example. She's got 4 strong colors on her. She has red, i.e. pink, purple, which is more of a blue purple, the green, and the yellow. So she's got 4. She's got 4 total colors on her. And technically she's got more because the indigo here that's used to highlight her black is actually a different color than is used. It's very similar to some of the midtones I got mixing in here, though. Yeah, keep it simple. At most 4, and your 4th needs to be an accent color. And by accent color, I mean small areas. Or, if you're going to use a 4th color, you can use it to shade or highlight a different color. But like for Halfling, the yellow being only on her hair is definitely an accent color. Although it also will probably creep into gold NMM on the embroidery. Yeah, my back is definitely like twingy today. Back! Don't do this. I even gave it yoga this morning. I think it must have been how I slept. Hate that. Hate that when that happens. So, behind the back stretch. If you've been sitting for an hour, do sit up and stretch. Stand up and stretch. Well, you can sit up and stretch too. You can stretch in your chair. But I like to stand. Alright, I'm going to go and do some quick cat-cows, and then I'll be right back up here and we will continue. Alrighty. See if I can make my back a little bit happier here. Give it a little massage. Just a little sad. Probably because I played computer games last night. And for some reason, at least with our current setup, that tends to irritate it a little bit. Alright. Might have to pull the stream a little short today if that back pain doesn't go away. It's a little bit better now. But yeah, totally for all I find that you can overcommit to colors. And the way I teach color theory is you get two strong colors out the gate. And then if the third color is part of the triad or a complement of another color, you can get a third one. And if you use a fourth one, it has to be very small and as an accent. So, and what I mean by that is, as far as triads and stuff go, is, for example, red, yellow, blue is a triad, and green, orange, purple is a triad. So if you choose red and blue, you can also use yellow with no problem. You can also use green with no problem because it's a complement of red. So then you could use red, green, blue, which is a color scheme I use an awful lot. Likewise, you could use like purple, green, orange, green, purple. And you could also use, like, instead of orange, you could go yellow and green. So you could use purple, green, and yellow because that's a complement again. So other than that, though, when it comes to using tetrads, which are the squares here. So we've got a square here and we've got a square here. When it comes to using those, then I find that one of these colors has to be an accent. So like, and usually it'll be like one of the brighter, lighter colors. So if I was doing a blue-green plus blue-violet plus orange-red plus yellow-orange. Probably my yellow-orange is going to be an accent color. Maybe it's going to be the hair color. Maybe it'll be a blonde, like the halfling is right now. Stuff like that. I actually was using my lumbar support pillow, Shadow Raven. I think it's just the way I hold my back when I'm mousing for long periods of time. Like if I'm going to sit and mouse at the gaming computer, it could also be that maybe the desk is a little too high. We're going to get me a new desk shortly, I think. So we're not going back to the factory. Okay, thanks, Quindy. Well, I'm pretty good now. I only have another 25 minutes. We'll see. I won't push it. I have lower back damage, so, you know, as you guys know. So I do strengthening exercises to help, but for some reason playing World of Warcraft seems to like do number to my back, and I have to believe it's my shoulder posture. Like I have to think, because that just goes straight down to your back. Because painting for like an hour and a half won't do that. Like I can sit and do the stream normally, and even do a second stream on Thursdays, and I don't get this pain. It's only WoW. It's only that. So I don't know what it is, but I have to start looking at what I'm doing. So anyway, yeah, that for color gamuts, guys. Oh, I want to share something with you too. I figured out what this color scheme is. It actually is an acceptable color scheme per the color wheel. It's what I call a complementary +1. So if we go and look at, or no, it's a straight up. This is straight up. Right. Okay. So we're doing a yellow, green, green, yellow. It's like exactly, where's my triad? Okay, there. Yellow, green, and red, orange. Was that it? I did figure out that yellow, green, and the blue, violet, like they're pretty much like on a triangle with each other. Darn it. I really did figure out what this color scheme was. What did I figure out? Now I'm annoyed at myself. Ooh, was it this one? It was actually on here. Like I did. I swear it. I swear. No, it's not that one. Curses! It was actually on here, though. I swear it was. I'll figure it out again later, and then I'll be like, dang it! But I think it was that if you use the circle, or the triangle, sorry, then the yellow-green that we're using and the violet that we're using are on... There we go. The yellow and blue-violet are on a triad, so they're in a triangle. So it is actually like we're using, in which case we should use a red-orange, I think, for our last one. So if I brought up this leather with reddish-orange color, then we'd be using a weird triad. It's the stress you're playing while you're watching Pirates, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the way, and it could be because I'm a healer. And we played the new dungeon last night. So it certainly is stressful for WoW for sometimes if I'm playing like content that's challenging. So I don't know, but it's got to be some way that I'm holding myself or doing something while wowing. Because it's only WoW. WoW always does it. Alrighty, let's do our shadows, which again is a mixture of russet brown and brown liner. Let's get some darks up here. And you want to blend those in a bit, unless it's a very shiny surface. Essentially, the more kind of burnished your metallic surface is, the more you want to blend the colors into each other with NMM. And the more shiny, like chrome-like your surface is, the less you want to blend them in. Most medieval armor was not a chromey surface. It's a burnished metal. So you want to blend things in just a little bit. Although in these very small areas, you just won't have the room. So, you know, don't stress out too much about it if the area you're working on is tiny. Oh, I gotta get it in focus here. I almost always go neutral with pouches, and if I go anything other, if I suggest any color, it's going to be bringing it up with a particular orangey brown or reddish brown, right? It's going to be like that, unless I'm using like a yellow leather, which is rare for me, but I have done it. Hey, Sarducci, thank you. With the Prime. 22 months, dang. Yeah, I'm liking, I like the new dungeon. Although it bugged out for us on the fourth boss or fifth boss. And we had to quit out of it to get out of it. But other than that, I like it. But yeah, so essentially you can make your leather also be a color just by like highlighting it up in a particular way. So yeah, if I wanted a red orange on this somewhere, I could use ruddy leather and maybe harvest brown and bring up some red or orange highlights on my dark leather and on the wood over here, and that would satisfy that requirement. You don't need to make a color like in your face. You can make it subtle and still use it. It will still read. What essentially that would read read as then is a very dark red orange. Which is just fine. It doesn't matter. And you can make a color very dark. You can make it very light. You can make it very subtle. You can put it in the shadows, the stuff like that. And it all works. It all works. But yeah, I tend to go neutral with my leather unless I really need a complementary. And if I do go with the red here, it also is technically a kind of a complementary to the green. So it'll make this green look more intense. But that's actually why I have gone away from using reddish colors on this. It's because I don't want this green to activate. I want the dress to stay yellow when all is said and done. I don't want it to look like a light green if I can help it. And I still am working on that. So that's why I probably won't complete the triad, is because I don't want to trigger a secondary complementary reaction by using something reddish and have this green suddenly light up when really I want the yellow to, which is why I went with purple. And more of a blue purple, not a red purple. Yeah, almost double subversary. I have to like get better at my theme song, my birthday song. So like David's office is finally opening up again, so he like goes back to actual office, like actual work, starting next week, which is gonna be weird because ever since I moved in, I moved in the middle of the start of the pandemic, so we've both been work from home forever, and now my David will be going into the office. I'll be all alone. It'll be weird. So weird. All right, so I've got my shadows blocked in on, I think, almost all of the NMM on this side. Let's get the other side. For the other side, we got to remember that it's the outer side of the staff that we made shadowed. So we want to repeat that on this side. Yeah, anybody else have loved ones going back to the office and it's going to feel so weird? I'm probably going to be a lot more productive. Let's be absolutely honest. Both of us will be. Because the other one isn't there to like disrupt us with a question about housework or something. Or whether we're going to the grocery store. All right, on the back side of this, same thing. It's kind of curved, so we're likely going to have more of the shadow on the underside. Oh, interesting. Interesting, Otter. Yeah, David really misses the office. Like he enjoys being in the office and interacting with people on his team in person. And he feels like it's more effective, which I totally get. So he really misses the office. He's looking forward to it. But I know a lot of people who are like, no way, I want to work from home forever. All right, got these little guys all figured out. All of our little shadows popped in. And actually, underneath her skirt here, that's all going to be pretty dark. So may as well just block in the whole darn thing. Except for the upper edge and the outer edge. All right. That's cool. You're one of those people? Oh, that's a ridiculous commute. Yeah, that's why we stopped looking at houses up in the mountains, is that the commute would have been too ugly for him. I would love to live in the mountains around here, but yeah. Yeah, permanent work from home? Yeah. Alrighty, let's add in some more highlights here on some other areas. Gonna have a bit of highlight here. We're gonna have a bit of highlight going down here. Since we're making our light source kind of here. But a cylinder is always gonna have like an up and down. Just like the ferrule on a brush, it's always going to have that up and down highlight. No matter which way you hold it, you're going to see that straight up and down highlight. So this counts as a cylinder. So once you figure out where your light is, you got to work with that. And again, I don't want that to be like a straight line like it is on my brush ferrule. Because the brush ferrule is like chrome almost. You know, it's kind of like that super shiny plastic. But this is more of a like burnished metal. So I want to blend it in a little bit. And I'm going to take that highlight up to white. Just not yet. I want to map in my highlights first. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Thormel. David's work is making is allowing some people to flex and work away from home, and they're doing a kind of a split workforce thing where some people would rather move to other teams or other locations or work permanently remotely under certain conditions or have a hybrid week. It really depends, but they're staying flexible. David just really loves the office, so. He wants other people to talk to other than me. All right, now we're bringing this up a little bit more. Bringing it up a little bit lighter. And gradually, just kind of like assessing how it looks. If you're not sure of your NMM or you're working with an area that is a little difficult for you to envision how it's going to work, just go slow. Go slow, kind of look at it as you go. Oh, I see why you live outside of your main living area if you live in SoCal. It's expensive there. Says the person living in NorCal. Or Central Cal, or whatever, San Francisco. The Bay Area. I guess I'm not really north. I always think that San Francisco is more north than it really is. Because I don't know the area well enough yet. And then when I look at it on a map, I'm like, oh, there's lots of California still north of us. Yeah. Well, but we are definitely staying in the expensive parts because David doesn't like commutes, and because we could have definitely, when we're shopping for places, like could definitely have gotten cheaper if we had gone out farther, but David likes a really short commute, so he doesn't like to waste a lot of time in transit so that he can get home and start doing fun stuff and without wasting too much time, and that's worth more to him, he's decided. It's his call, so I mean, I am purely work from home now, so I'm just kind of like messing around with this cylinder, kind of trying to figure out where I want my real highlight to go, because I want to get my shadow up next to that once I've got it. And then there's also a reflection over here that's going to make this part a little lighter. That means I probably need to move my shadow a bit. Yeah, I mean, audiobooks help, but if you wouldn't normally be putting all that time into audiobooks, then it's still not as cool as getting home, having dinner, and having, you know, more time to kick around and do whatever you really want to do. I use audiobooks on road trips a lot, though, and David and I both do. And sometimes while we're painting, we'll listen to an audiobook. The most I've ever had to commute is like a half an hour. That wasn't too bad. Because I do like listening to music in the car and audiobooks and stuff like that, so. So trying to get all of that. Yeah, that's a good trade, Max. I mean, it really is, you know, all about, like, your work environment. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Especially with home prices the way they are. Mm-hmm. Totally get it. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their priorities, and we're all unique. David is a lot more of a city mouse than I am, though. Like, he likes to be close to stuff. Yeah, so cylindrical highlight is like getting there, but it's still not awesome there. I have to bring up an under reflection. I am slowly dialing it in. I'll probably have to muck with it a bit more just to make it look right. Cylinders can be, they're the easiest thing to like kind of see where your highlight and shadow should go, but they're also one of the hardest things to like blend in because you're trying to work in such a tight, small surface. So sometimes it can be annoying. So we'll at least start with that. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, you guys who got in on the housing bust got lucky. Yeah, have fun, Otter Mama. Oh, thank you, 9 cents. Thank you for the primary sub, 17 months. Long time listener, first time caller. You're funny. Well, I appreciate you in either form. How about that? Yeah, we're almost there. All right. Well, at least we've gotten our NMM kind of mapped in. Mostly here I'm going to paint all of the surfaces that are facing up are going to get a coat of this or this mixed with a tiny bit of that. Because lighter surfaces, just like you can see on the sword, how the entire upper side of it there is lighter. That's kind of how that's how your gold should look as well. It'll still have highlights and shadows, but in general, the entire surface will be lighter if it is facing the light. And of course, bringing in these highlights on things like the hilt is going to make all of your details stand out a little better, especially since you've done that shadow. There we go. Vitae drinker. Are you a vampire aficionado? Thank you with the resub for Prime. That's 2 months. Thanks very much. I hope you're learning. I'm going to just do a little bit of a highlight down here on the very bottom of this part of the hilt, because that's where I want like my reflected light to come up a little bit. So we're blocking in. We blocked in a lot of our gold NMM today. And we did a lot of talking about shaded metallics as well. I'm going to bring up my highlight up here even more. Since this is a rounded surface, my highlight should be rounded, even or as much as I can get it to be. And that putting that highlight up at the top there will also make it stand out from the skin very well, which I really like. Used to play Vampire the Masquerade all the time, yep. Yeah, I was a Werewolf the Apocalypse player, and GM actually, mostly GM. I really liked Werewolf. I ran some Vampire too, though. Still think original World of Darkness was a great setting. A little bit there. A little bit more of a highlight on the underside here. That's looking pretty good up at the top now. At the top of the bodice. Oh, sure. Yes, you totally should, Alcos. It's nice to meet you. Have a good one. Hope to see you again. We're gonna be calling it in about 5 minutes anyway, but I managed to do my whole shtick, so. Did my whole session. Just getting a little bit more dialed in on some of this stuff. Feel like I got a little bit light on all of this, so I'm gonna knock it back a little. I want it to be, still want it to be gold, so I don't want to take it up toward white too fast on such a small area, because I'll lose that gold look. And this is one where I may want to come back and glaze with lantern yellow at the end too. So glaze the dress with lantern yellow, glaze the NMM with lantern yellow. Lots of yellow today. Lots of yellow on this model. Yeah, I'm okay with the staff so far. I think it can get better. I'll get its reflections on. It'll probably look better. Put a little bit of a highlight. You always want that pure white highlight also. Because that's also a key part of making something look shiny. This one needs a little bit more of a gradient on the underside, so it's not all that dark. Making progress. Jeannie is definitely, I think Jeannie might be done. Jeannie technically would be tomorrow, guys. I'll have to look at her, because maybe we should start a new mini tomorrow instead. I still have some of her basing to do, but it's not like you guys need to watch all that. So I'll look at Jeannie and see if there are still little bits of detail that I could do on her, as well as the basing, and then we can plan to start a new model from Greek Odyssey. Ooh. To replace the Genie. Although I have a replacement for somebody. I just don't remember. I have some models that I had lined up, but I don't think I had replaced Genie. I think I was considering replacing her with like an ogre or something. But now that I've got my cool expansion, though. Yeah, have a good time, Shadow Raven. I hope you enjoy your lunch. Thanks for coming along, as always. Alright, I think we've got... I'll prep some stuff today. I'll put that on my to-do list to prep some stuff for the stream here. Just in case we decide that we want to start something new tomorrow. And I'll prep several things so that you guys can vote. I'll make sure that the options are all ones I would be excited about. I'm sure there are plenty that I would be excited about from the Greek Odyssey set. So do show up tomorrow. Do tune in. If nothing else, even if we do work on Jeannie and finish her last bits, I'll do the vote. And if we decide that Jeannie is far enough along, then we'll actually start something. All right, so that's coming along. The gold on the staff and the sword and everything else is coming along nicely. I do feel like I want to grab a little bit of my yellow, and I'm going to actually draw this in kind of a yellow off-white to remind myself to do these laces. Because I think I do want them to be yellow. I think I have enough purple now. And by drawing it in white, then I'll be able to go over it in yellow. Alrighty. Yeah, that's going to look good. I can tell just now, before I even put real yellow over it, that that's going to look good. So fantastic. Lovely. Awesome. Hey guys, look, Lisette's looking better and better. I think she's really going to be a pretty mini. Yeah, it's coming. It's not quite there yet, Bergala, but we're working on it, you know. It's getting there. Sometimes you just got to mess around with it a lot until it looks right. Even when you've got a good grasp of it, sometimes that's the case. There are times where I'm just like, this isn't quite right. This isn't quite right. I'm going to mess with it. Mess with it, mess with it, mess with it. Oh, okay, now it's okay. Just going to put in a bit of an under reflection down here on the foot of the staff. And then I'll refine that later. And mem is time consuming because of that slow step process where you just kind of have to like think and correct and adjust and all the rest of it. We didn't get to our glowy crystal this time, so maybe we'll do the purple next time, guys. We'll see how we feel. But if we feel like it, we'll maybe we'll do our purple crystal and the flowers and the wraps and all the rest of it. But yeah, so what we did today, we made progress on Lysette, who's looking really cool. I probably should block in her eyeballs at some point too, because she's got those. David would yell at me because she's got no eyes. But at any rate, what we did today, and I totally forgot that her little buckle up here was gold, so we'll work on that. We had a long talk at the start of the stream about when you know, that shaded metallics or NMM are both good options for miniatures, and you shouldn't just, you know, put away your metallic paint. But they can be a little more effective on bigger surfaces and things like that. And so do go back and take a look at that. We also linked to our Dark Dwarf Smiter video early on in this video, so you could go back and see how we painted him with his shaded metallics. After that, we got down to the NMM on this model, so we're slowly blocking in shadows and highlights and all of the everythings to get this a little closer to done. And we kind of talked about it while we did it. We also brought up the Reaper Challenge League, which if you are not familiar, you totally should become familiar with it. It is super awesome and a good way to motivate yourself to paint a little more if that's one of the things on your to-do list. And that is pretty much what I've got for you guys today. I hope you had a good time. It's getting a little bit of her bling lined up there on her throat. I'm pretty happy with how she's turning out. Who are we rating today, Quindy? Oh, that's right. And we have Miniatures Den with Luca today. Join the alpaca squad. And it's just ISIS. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been Anne. I hope you had a great time and that you have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.